Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So this is going to be a new series. There's a real problem in the industry right now with a lot of wedding couples that are not, they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They don't know what they do after certain points. And I came up with a solution I wanted to interview my past brides and ask them what they did back when they were making their wedding plans so that we're going to record it and we're going to show you. So something in here might help you plan your day better with certain things like why do we make such a big deal about the centerpieces when it really wasn't such a big deal? And hopefully it helps you plan in direction as far as planning your wedding day. So today's video is with Stefania. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I am amazing. So I sent you the questions ahead of time because I felt like the questions were a little bit more pertinent because I wanted to zero in on certain things. And if I had you come here without any knowledge of the questions, you would have been like, oh, I really don't remember what I did about this. So I did send them to you ahead of time, just so you can kind of premeditate your answers, your thoughts, and talk to your husband about what we did at this and what we did at that. So this is Dear Future Bride. This is advice you would give your future self. Like when you were planning with your fiance about your wedding a year later, what would you tell yourself? What advice would you give yourself? You had a year to plan your wedding. Now it's already done. Wedding's already done. Everything came off with no hitches at all. Is there any advice you would give your future self saying X?
I think the biggest thing would be to enjoy the process of planning because it goes by so fast and it can be really stressful to do because you're trying to choose your vendors, your place, your dress. So it can get a little overwhelming. So I think the biggest piece of advice I can give is to slow down.
Good point.
And enjoy those moments, enjoy looking, because you're going to do these things, God willing, one time.
Yes, good point. And I feel like that's a great advice, but I feel like I'm going to have you elaborate on that a little bit more. Let's say somebody is under the pressure of planning their wedding. What advice would you give them to take a break and just not be so overwhelmed? Would you say, take a break, take a day off, or get some help? Or what advice would you give somebody?
Definitely recruit help. It can be a little tricky getting help from family because they could be very opinionated on what to do. But just getting some feedback from people you trust, what do you think about this aspect? I'm thinking about this. What do you think about that? Because sometimes you're so deep into the planning that you can't see the big picture so much.
Yeah.
So,
was there any... I don't use regrets in wedding in the same sentence. But was there anything on your end in the planning process that you either regret you did for the wedding day or regret you spent so much time on that it didn't make a difference?
I think it's actually the opposite. I'm so happy with the venue that we chose, but I wish we looked at more.
Okay.
I have a cousin getting married now, and they've looked at so many places, and they've asked me why we didn't look at certain places. So I think for us, it was that anxiety of wanting to book before our date got booked.
And that happens.
Yes.
You had a specific date in mind for your wedding. So for you, and this is very helpful for all the other people that are out there, that if you are set on a date, you're subject to venue. Yes. You're subject to whatever venue is going to be available. So that's good advice to tell somebody that if they're not set in a date, it's okay to look at a few different venues when it comes to that, because we're going to talk about vendors later on and stuff like that. So we'll talk about later on the vendors and stuff like that. But when it comes to the venue, because everybody has to start with a date and a venue. That is the beginning process from the time that you say yes to I do. The venue and the date is the two first things that have to be set. And for you, the date was already set. You just needed to find a venue. We found Hotel Northampton in Northampton, Massachusetts. Absolutely amazing venue. It is not a barn. It is not anything like a normal style of a venue. This is a beautiful, beautiful hotel, beautiful lobby. Everything about it is excellent. So I didn't know, by the time you hired me, I didn't know that you had a date set in stone. It was just finding a venue in that. So your only regret would be you didn't spend enough time searching other venues.
Yeah, okay. I wish we looked into more, and it did have a lot to do with flexibility on the date. And there was a couple dates we had in mind, but I really preferred the date that we picked. It just felt right for some reason. So
no, that makes perfect sense. Some people will pick dates based on other information, like a grandparent's, birthday or grandparents' wedding anniversary. So they wanted their wedding anniversary to be the same as them. So those are specific times. But if there's no specific date when you're looking for a venue, how many venues would you recommend? How many do you wish you would have looked into?
We looked at 4 only. I wish we looked at maybe 6 or 7.
Okay.
Still not a crazy amount, but at least to get more of a variety. Not to say that the venues we looked at, they were different. They had a different vibe. So we gave ourselves at least that mix of environments to test out what felt right to us.
Right.
So in that way, I don't feel like we missed out on
good point.
That, figuring out what our style is, but it just might have been nice to take a peek at a couple other options.
Got it. And that makes perfect sense. All right. So you ready for your questions?
I'm ready.
All right. After saying yes, what did you do first for planning your wedding? Was it the season, the month, or the location? So this is kind of like the same question we just said, but answer that again.
So the season,
what came next?
The season is probably the first thing that we thought of. We scratched out what we didn't want. Did not want winter. Not a cold weather person. Didn't really want fall either. So then that leaves spring and summer. And then the issue with spring was it can be rainy. And summer felt like a sure thing. And then that narrowed it down a month. Getting married in July or August, it's going to be hot and sticky outside. So we narrowed it down to end of June or beginning of September. Still really nice weather, warm outside, but not sweltering.
Yes, and I feel like that's great advice. Taking that in consideration because you're wearing a dress. The dress has some weight to it. So you have to take that into consideration when it comes to that. So that's really, really good advice that somebody will be like, oh my God, I want a summer wedding because I want a beautiful, not thinking, or it could be 97 degrees out that day. And if the venue you picked does not have an awning, you're baking.
Yeah.
So great advice, great advice. So for you, it was season.
Yes, definitely
good.
Season.
That makes sense. All right. That was a good answer. All right. Question number 2. What were the 3 most important things to you on your wedding day? Venue, photography, food, etc. No particular order. But other than that, what was the 3 top things that were the most important things to you?
Venue for sure.
Okay.
Photographer for sure. And DJ.
Perfect. And I feel like that's the normal for all 3. And I feel like I do have some people that usually put DJ first because they want that energy. They want somebody to have a good time. There's other people that do venue first because they want somebody to have, oh my God, I want the best food that we possibly could have. So I feel like you're safe with those 3.
For sure.
Good. All right. Number 3, how would you prioritize your spending? So not getting into budget, if somebody has X dollar amount, like a flat dollar amount that they have, what advice would you give them on prioritizing the money?
For us, it was really finding vendors and packages that fit what we needed and what we wanted for the best price. We price shopped with almost everything, venues and vendors. And we also had an Excel sheet. So I was able to...
That's good advice.
Yes, it saved my life.
That is really good advice.
Yeah, I was able to put this much per person, and I could put how many people, and then all tallied at the bottom. Because when you're dealing with all of these prices, it's easy to get lost in it. So it helped keep me on track and made sure that we were allocating our budget in the right spots because we didn't want to splurge in one place and then drop the ball somewhere else.
Good advice. And I'm going to assume that you and your husband were together on the process of doing this. So if he felt like he wanted to spend a little bit more money here by having this, then there's got to be a little wiggle room on the other side saying, hey, honey, that's okay. But if you do that, we got to watch what we have over here. So I feel like a lot of grooms are not very involved with the wedding planning process. So your husband was. What advice would you give somebody that had a spouse that was a little bit less involved?
I would do what you can do, find what's interesting to them and get them involved. like we chose our venue because of my husband. He just the way he was looking around at things. He's a quiet guy. And I could tell that this was the place for him. So it was kind of appealing to him for what he was interested in. And because he's not really a planning person like that, I would break down everything for him. Okay, this is who I talked to. Here's his price and here's what it includes. And putting it in a digestible format like that made it easier for him to kind of see where I was at with all of that.
That's good advice. And I feel like the groom, unfortunately, not being involved is normal. I do feel like that is normal. And I feel like that's good advice, meaning I was hoping you weren't going to say beat him until he listens. But the advice was just get him as much as involved as he possibly can. I find some of my clients they don't have somebody to go to for information. And you and I were talking before we started this, that I have some brides that they don't know what they're doing. So they're relying on people that got married 35 years ago in those trends and those things. And the weddings cost so much more now than they did back 35 years ago. So they mean well, but the advice that they give is not really kind of too relevant to now in 2024, 2025. The flip side of that is they're the first of the 9 friends and their friends hasn't gotten married yet. So they can't go to their friends that have already gotten married and say, hey, what did you do in this situation? So there's got to be a balance in there someplace, because if you take it on all yourself, it's going to be overwhelming.
For sure.
And like you said in the beginning, is just take a break, walk away, and then come back with fresh eyes, ask for help if it's possible. But you're right. It is very opinionated when it comes to that. So take the advice you get with a grain of salt and just say, this is what I feel like. If nobody's going to help me, this is what I feel like I really want to do. This is the dress that I want. This is the photographer I want. This is the DJ that I want. Did you go to social media for any advice as far as the answer was yes?
Yes.
Okay. In what way did you go to social media?
Really, the algorithm, once I started liking wedding things, I started getting a lot of stuff. I was getting a lot of stuff about first looks, which isn't something that was really done 30 years ago. So I was able to get the value in that and just new trends and what people were doing and how they were going about doing those things. I went through this website for invitations. I used my Cricut to make this. So I was able to get those ideas through social media, looking up other people's weddings, other people's videos, looking at their pictures, just getting a feel for what I wanted and did not want.
So almost used it for like a source of inspiration almost. Yes. And then if something gravitated to you about it, then you would kind of search in that direction. Okay. Yes. And I feel like people can get too overwhelmed by trying to see what everybody else is doing and try and make your wedding that way. I feel like that would be overwhelming, and it could be more hurt than anything else. So you found just enough of a balance in there to get just enough information about it without being overwhelming.
Yes.
Good. That's good advice. I like that. All right. Number 4, why and how did you pick your wedding venue, which we talked about already. And you visited about 5 or 6 different, 3 or 4 different venues, and you picked that, and you just told me because of the feeling that your husband had in the room, and it was a beautiful place. We literally went out on the street, at nighttime in the middle of the intersection and took some beautiful pictures on that. So that was perfect. So I feel like we already answered that question. Yes. All right, let's go to number 5. How did you pick your wedding vendors? So now this is, I feel like, where a lot of people are struggling right now, is because they can put a post up, hey, I need a DJ, give me your recommendations. And all of a sudden, 193 recommendations come up inside, and they're like, what bride is going to go through 193 different referrals inside of there? So how did you pick any and all of your vendors in the direction that you went in?
The first, I picked a photographer first, and I knew you because the family knows you. My family went to school with you. My mother did. So I was able to look into you through her. But I also, for all the vendors, like I mentioned before, we did look at a couple different options. So we chatted with you, and we also chatted with 2 others. And you ended up having what we were looking for, great package, great price. But we looked at one that was more expensive but had less, and one that cost less but also had less. So it was really about finding that sweet spot. And we did have a videographer, and I took your recommendation because it made sense to me that the the two of you needed to work well together. You're going to be getting in each other's way, kind of looking to get the same shots. So finding someone that you worked with, I thought would make the day go by the smoothest. As far as the DJ goes, preferred vendor. They had 2 preferred vendors. One of them was like a larger company that had a few DJs, and you would kind of do a questionnaire and they would match you up, which is great. And it sounds awesome in hindsight. But the other who we ended up going with, it was just him. He was in the business for over 30 years. And he had a tried and true method and plenty of reviews to back it up. I liked his experience. And there was a reason why he was a preferred vendor. So we ended up going with him.
And he kept your dance floor full all night.
It was full all night.
It was full all night. And I feel like, what advice would you give a wedding couple that is looking between 3 different DJs? What would you getting married in the future, knowing what you know, what advice would you give somebody that's in between 3 vendors? Either 3 DJs, 3 photographers, what advice would you give them?
I would, again, it really goes back to what your priorities are. And going through reviews of the vendors is really important.
Good point.
And seeing, I had this DJ and they did A, B, and C for me. And you're like, you know what, that's what I'm looking for in my wedding. So really reviews are really important. You can look on Google and you can look and see what that DJ is about. And then of course their website is going to have their values and what their goals are for your wedding. So it's really about whose personality meshes with you too, especially when you're talking to people.
Good point.
Like there was a couple vendors in different categories that I talked to that I just didn't click with. And I knew that they weren't the one for our wedding. So it really is about how you get along. Definitely call. It's easy to just email and kind of go through things that way, but making a phone call or even going in person and talking to someone is the way to go. You want to like the person, you know, because then they're going to.
So that's good advice. I really feel like giving it, telling somebody to. So you didn't have a problem with a DJ company that had multiple DJs and they paired you up. You just felt like that's not what you wanted to do for your day.
Yeah.
Okay. And I agree with that. I feel like having a conversation, when somebody reaches out to me for wedding photography, I always try and get them on the phone because I want them to hear me, my personality. Yes, you can see my pictures. Yes, you can see my website, but I want you to hear my voice and my enthusiasm that I have while I'm talking to somebody. And I feel like that's very helpful to get somebody on the phone. And some couples nowadays are too busy to get people on the phone. Would you recommend and advise it is in their best interest to get whoever you're going to hire, before you hire them, get them on the phone? Would you give them that advice?
I would give them that advice. I just think you can't really know if you're going to mesh with someone through an email.
Good point.
It can be very misinterpreted. It can seem like maybe they don't care as much, but that's just because they're dry emailers. Like the DJ, for instance, circling back on that, he didn't really have a website. And I looked him up recently and he didn't seem to have like a website. He really goes off of his reviews and what he can tell you on the phone. And just circling back to why the bigger company didn't work, because it's a good idea to do the questionnaire and be like, okay, we're going to have a DJ tailored to you, but we wanted a DJ tailored to not just us, but everybody. Somebody who knew what got everybody of all ages. Wow,
that is a really good point. That's a really good point, because it's not just, it's bride and groom, yes, but you're got 150 people coming to your wedding. You want to make sure that DJ is going to be able to accommodate that kind of, that's really good advice right there.
We wanted everyone to have fun.
Yeah, and they did. All right, number 6. All right, how many of each of the venues did you work with? Did you go with 3 DJs, 3 photographers, 3 video, or how did your process look?
So we had one of everything, but the photographer, we had 2. Yep. And that was really important to me because I wanted to get those pictures of my husband getting ready. That was a part of the day that I wouldn't have been privy to otherwise. Yep. And I loved seeing those pictures. I mean, he loves those pictures with his dad. Yep. There's pictures with my dad who has since passed. Yep. And those are just really valuable. Yeah. So I love those pictures.
Yeah.
And
so, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And having two photographers was able to capture different parts of the day. They're everywhere. So there was no shortage of pictures.
Yes, and you're welcome. So would you suggest, giving advice to a future bride, would you say 2 or 3 vendors per category would be a safe, you can find the high, you can find the low, and then you can figure personality out in between all of them?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, so I did talk to 2 DJ companies, the big one.
Yeah.
The videographer, I think I might have looked into one other, but I had a strong preference for who you recommended for the reason I mentioned earlier. Yeah. But also another reason I liked him is we met out in person and we talked a little bit about what his process is and his package, and it was that personal experience.
Oh, okay.
So again, I really liked that. Our florist, it was a preferred vendor again, because at Hotel Northampton, at least when I got married, your centerpieces were included. So we had 2 to go to, but the one I went with, I actually didn't even end up talking to the first one because I went to the first florist and it was such a positive experience.
Nice.
He sat us down in the shop and we were just talking for, I think, like an hour. It was a weekend day, so my husband could be there too. He was talking about his experience and how much he loves what he does. And I love that. I love seeing the vendors get excited about what they do, because then they're going to be excited to be there on your day.
Yes. Or when they're making whatever they're making prior to your day, like flowers, that's all made prior to the day. You know they're putting their final touches on all of that. Sure. And that's good advice. I feel like that's a lot of good information when it comes to helping people make their decisions. But I'm also noticing 3 times you've said it. And I feel like this is where people nowadays in 2025 are struggling. You got them on the phone or you met them in person. Yeah. I feel like that right now is a disconnect between wedding couples now in 2025. And this video is meant for 25, 26, 27, 28. You need to get a phone call. We know you're busy. We're busy. You're busy. But you're hiring somebody for your day, and you want to give them the benefit of the doubt of at least meeting in person or a phone call or a coffee or something. 15, 20 minutes of your time is worth making sure you get the right person instead of just going with the lowest person. Yes. So 3 times I've heard you say phone call with them, and that was very important, and or meeting in person, which was very important. So that right there, I'm going to pull from you and say, that to me is really, really good advice to give people. We know you're busy, but take the time, because this is your one wedding day and you want it done right. All right. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So did you have requirements for photo, video, and DJs and dress and caterers and cake, and were they met? Meaning you wanted 2 photographers, that was met. Your DJ had a certain style, that was met. Was there any requirements for your dress? Because you had a beautiful dress. Also, was there any, let's do it this way. We already talked about DJ and photographer. Did you have any requirements for, and you already talked about your flowers, for cake or dress?
I'll start with the dress.
Okay.
So I didn't have a strong idea for what it needed to look like specifically, but I knew what I did not want it to look like.
And so that's important too. That's just as important.
I went in there, I knew I did not want a mermaid style. And my reasoning for that is because it was super popular when I got engaged up into the year we got married, and I wanted something different.
Good for you.
And another way I achieved that was I went to it was a European boutique. So they had different styles of dresses, and I was able to get something truly unique there. And that's what I was looking for. As far as the cake goes, I did have a very specific idea.
Oh, I did not know that.
I did. So I sent them a few inspiration pictures.
Okay.
Because our colors were light pink and gold. So I wanted something, I said, I want something delicate, light pink, gold flakes, just almost like a gentle cake.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure what it was going to look like until that day. And it was so beautiful. Some people thought it was fake. It was a display cake. I'm like, nope, that's a real cake.
It was good too.
It was good.
It was very tasty. And I did not know that you had a certain requirement. And I feel like that's very important because your whole countenance changed the second I said, if you had any requirements for your cake. You just like, oh, I did. And I went, and there's something about that came out. And when you expressed to them, there was no regrets in the final product.
Not at all.
So that was something that was very important to you, just like DJs, photographers, and everything else. That was another piece of the puzzle that was just as important, almost like, no pun intended, the icing on the cake for the whole day. That was so good. You had a good experience with the dress, and you had a good experience with the cake.
For sure.
Good. All right. Okay. All right. How did you pick your wedding party?
It was a pretty clear, easy choice. A lot of it was family, with a few best friends too. And we didn't have an even wedding party. We had 5 on the groom's side and 3 on the bride's side. I didn't, and Cooper didn't find it super necessary to add people just to make
I agree
even.
100%.
Everyone who was up there, we felt needed to be upstanding for us, and they wanted to. And that's really what it's about. It's about the people closest to you. So that's one tradition that I didn't care about.
Good.
We didn't need the 2 and 2.
Yep.
Because there was only 8. It was 1 at a time walking down the aisle, and I thought it went and looked really well. And the pictures look really good.
And I feel like that is very good advice. I feel like some people like, no, I have to have 5 people, so he has to have 5 people. And I had a bride tell me that before when they were in the beginning process, and I was like, don't just pick anybody just to fill the spot, because you don't know what you're going to get. The people that you want to be with you are the people that have been with you from the beginning, your friends from college or cousins or whatever the case may be. You want that to be important, not just to fill a spot.
For sure.
And just throw somebody in there. As a photographer, I will make 5 and 3 work. Even though I know 5 and 3, I'm going to have to maneuver some things. We just moved some things around, so it wasn't even really obvious that there was an odd number to it. So you were adamant. You didn't care if there was an odd number. It was just good. So was your wedding party involved with the planning of your wedding? Question number 1. Part 2 of that is, do you wish they were more involved with your wedding? Meaning helping you, any DIYs or any plannings of the day and things like that. Not on the wedding day, but prior to the wedding day. Was your wedding party helpful?
Definitely was helpful. For the Jack and Jill, they really threw everything they got at it. They not only did they donate raffle prizes, but they showed up that day early. They helped set up. They helped break down.
Yeah.
For my bachelorette, we did a weekend actually, and everybody was excited to be there and wanted to be there.
Nice.
And made me feel special. So there was a lot about the wedding day specifically that I kind of kept between me and Cooper, but for all of the events leading up to it, they were just so loving and supportive. My bridesmaids and maid of honor at my bridal shower, again, were just super involved, writing down what the gifts were, like putting them aside, and then the guys came and helped load it all into the car later. So they were there at every step and were excited and motivated to help us.
That is what a wedding party is for.
For sure.
I'm sorry, but the people that just think it's party time and we're going to have a good time, yes. But your job and responsibility is to tend to the best man or to tend to the groom and the bride. That is their job. That is their responsibilities to do that. And they did that. So you had no regrets with your wedding party and no regrets with them helping you because they helped you.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Next question. Did you personalize? You had a first look. And we did a really unique spot with your first look because of the veranda with the whole open front of the hotel. Only 1 or 2 people came walking through, but it wasn't distracting to what we were doing. Did you do any special vows? That's my question to you is, if you did, are you glad you did, or do you regret you didn't? Meaning vows, you guys are up before you get the rings, your vows to each other. Did you do special ones or pre-written?
We wrote our own vows.
Okay.
We actually had little vow books, and we typed them up and glued them in the books. So in the pictures, it was something nice and not just like a piece of paper.
Yeah, good point.
And that was something that we knew we wanted to do right away. We're both very expressive with our words when it comes to our love to one another. When we birthday cards, anniversary cards, it's a whole thing written out. He texts me a little love letter every morning. Mm-hmm. So we're no strangers to that. So we knew that we wanted to write our own vows, and it can be a really tricky thing to do.
Tell me.
It's because you're trying to sum up everything into one speech, so to say, and you want to tell your story in it as well as the promises And that transition, you got to find the right words for it.
Very good advice. So, dear future bride, what advice would you give a bride and wedding couple when it comes to planning and writing out their vows? What advice would you give them?
Outline.
Okay.
Definitely do an outline. Don't be afraid to look up other examples.
Oh.
I did that just to get a feel, because there's so many different ways you can write your own vows.
Good point.
So many different structures. So read about them.
Good point.
And figure out what structure works best for you.
So you're saying don't wing it.
Don't wing it. Don't wing it.
This is the time where the groom has the opportunity to read his vows. And I feel like this is where the guys shell up and they don't want to let that emotion come out. The bride wants that emotion to come out in that opportunity. So I've done some ceremonies, some vows, like the ones that you wrote. Yours were done together in front of everybody. I've done them some separately at a first look. They've done their vows together, so they only had to kiss later on. So I get both ways. But your suggestion would be, in a nutshell, don't wing it.
Yeah.
Put some thought into it, put some effort into it. Keep it short, not 15 minutes long, but enough to let that person know that how important they are to them.
For sure. Definitely time yourself too.
Oh, good point.
We did that. We timed each other, like ourselves,
Yep.
and because we wanted to make sure that my vows weren't like 3 minutes long.
Good
and
point.
he was only talking for a minute.
Good point.
So we wrote our own vows, and then we would time and come
Got it.
together. Like, okay, I think we were both at like 2 minutes,
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that.
Wow, Stefania, I did not even see that coming. That is very important. Don't wing it, and don't be like 2 minutes, 57 seconds, and you have to be 2 minutes and 57 seconds. But keep them somewhat close so it doesn't look like the other person just kind of like winged it. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's good advice. I really feel like that's important. I feel like somebody's going to gravitate to that because I feel like, yeah, I did not even see that coming. That's important. That's good. Oh, that's good. All right. You did a first look. Are you glad you did?
Yes.
Why did you do a first look? What was your reasoning for doing a first look?
There was 2 major reasons. The first and biggest reason was to have that private moment together. We knew that the day was going to be insane. And if we saw each other at the ceremony, it would be like ceremony, pictures, reception, pictures again.
Yeah.
So we wanted to take a pause and have that private moment together. When we got engaged, it was just the 2 of us. Mm-hmm. And I felt like the first look really mirrored that.
Yeah.
And who we are, because we had it was about 150 people, so it wasn't like an intimate ceremony, but it was nice to have that intimate moment.
Yeah.
And it also worked out for our day because we did the first look. We were able to do pictures early and be present for the cocktail hour, which allowed us to talk to some wedding guests and then enjoy our dinner a little bit more. So it really kind of slowed down the whole day.
Yeah. And then when we went outside for nighttime pictures, that was another time of taking you. I don't like to use the word taking you away from your wedding to go do pictures, but it does get you away from that hustle and bustle of entertaining all these people and talking to you and all this stuff like that, to go outside and just kind of have, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes of just downtime with just a photographer and video if they have it, and just doing some pictures that just adds to your portfolio, and then come back right back into your wedding. So yes, you did a first look and you had no regrets about it. You did do it and you're glad you did it.
For sure.
Good. All right. So when you do a first look, if you have a videographer, it's the video and the photographer there doing it at the same time. Did you feel that was overwhelming because you knew we were there, because you can hear the click and you know that we're there, and did that bother you, us being there, even though it was just the 2 of you guys? Because we kind of stayed back a good 20 feet to kind of give you some space. Did you feel like that was bothersome to you?
I did not.
Okay.
I don't know if it was just being swept up in the moment, but I didn't even hear the camera clicks.
Okay.
So it didn't take anything away at all.
Okay. So I just wanted another bride in the future to say, if I do that, I know that there's still people standing around watching us, that I don't want that. That, even though that's our job, you really didn't even know that we were there.
Yeah,
and to me, that's the best compliment any bride can give me, is like, oh my God, I didn't even know you were there. Because that's what our job is, to just kind of like be that fly on the wall and just get that moment between the two of you guys. Good. I'm glad. Anything else on that?
There were a couple pictures where I was like, where was he? I didn't see him there at all.
I was peering through a little a window pane of glass from the inside of the thing. So yeah, once I get my safe shots and the shots that I want, I leave you guys there to talk a little bit, and then I just walk around and shoot through railings and shoot through other things just to kind of like, change it up a little bit and just get different angles, because when you have two photographers, my job is to get the bride's face, and then the second photographer's, his job is to get the groom's face as he's turning. So we get both aspects of it when it comes to that. So, all right, good advice. All right, we already asked if you had a videographer, and you're glad you did?
For sure.
Okay.
I watch that all the time.
We're good with that. All right. Is there anything else you would like to share with, like, either advice you would give yourself that you worried so much about, or I wish I would have worried about it more? And let's start with that. Is there anything you would give yourself advice on? Here you are, if you were getting married next year, knowing you went through all of this, what advice would you give yourself?
I really stressed out about the guest list.
We didn't even talk about that.
For sure, because going back to expectations, family wants, I want to invite this person and that person and this person, and then you want to invite this person and that person and this person. So it can get really overwhelming to choose who you want to invite. So I think really taking a minute to focus on your budget and be honest about that is really important thing to do. I wish I didn't get so frustrated about that, because it really ended up working out. And also another thing to note, not everyone's going to come. I mean, I know it's not a guarantee, but a lot of, a good amount of people aren't going to come. So I wouldn't have stressed so much about the guest list aspect of it.
Good point. Now, what advice would you give any future bride? They just got engaged. They're just saying, I do. You went through this already. You've already run the game, and you've already on the other side of this. What advice would you give another future bride? What advice would you give another future bride?
I've mentioned this before, just to enjoy the process and take your time with it, because it's easy to get really overwhelmed and be like, okay, we got to do this, this, and that, because you can go from, okay, we have 2 years before the wedding to, oh my God, it's a year and a half, a year away, and I haven't really done much. So I think really taking time to take it all in and enjoy it, and enjoy looking at the vendors and the venues and talking to different people. And another thing I would, suggest, you don't need to be super fancy about everything. Like, we got our invitations and save the dates from a website. We didn't go to, because there were some vendors at wedding shows or bridal shows that do really specialized stuff. And that wasn't a super priority for us. So
that's good advice.
We were able to find something really beautiful online. And we also found a very simple invitation that had the RSVP attached to it. And that made things worlds easier.
That is good advice. And if a bride is a little bit more attentive to the detail and she wants that special invitation, go for it. Yeah. For you, you just felt like, I didn't want to go down that road. We found something that was comparable and we were happy with. So find a compromise in there someplace, and the things that you're really set on, hold to them and get them. And then the other things like, not so much. We can, be flexible on this. I feel like taking a breath and not being overwhelmed, because I think that's the word you used about 4 times already, is not being overwhelmed and just taking, each day as it is and getting help when you can. And I feel like that's very important. So any other advice you would give either your future self or any future wedding couple looking to get married?
There's one piece of advice for brides that I thought of before I left my house today. Don't get your hair done last. Don't get it done last.
I need you to elaborate on that, because this is something that is normal, that the bride gets their hair done last.
So
why?
Get it done second to last, and I'll tell you why. If your hair starts falling out, if there's like your hair piece starts kind of sliding or falling, the hairdresser's still there to fix it for you. Because
that's great advice.
I ran into that a little bit, where I got my hair done last, and after she left, my hair piece kept kind of slipping. and I wished she was still there to fix it for me. The hairdresser in the family helped me, thank God. But that's my piece of advice. Like, get your makeup done last for sure. Maybe get your hair done.
Because
get
it's the freshest.
Done. Yes.
Okay.
Fresh makeup, because you'll be sweating and hot, but get your hair done second to last.
Second to last. That way you're out of the chair, you're walking around, we're doing some things, and if it's going to fall or if it's going to come undone or something starts to slip, they're still there to fix it.
For sure.
Wow, I think that's really, really good advice, and I was not even expecting that. And I feel like this is why I'm asking an actual bride, and I gave you just information to kind of start with, but I wanted you to kind of elaborate on, and you did. You gave me a lot of good information that I feel like a lot of brides will have something from this that they're going to be able to take from this, and something of your wisdom is going to help them either not stress out or not worry about this, or, you know what, I did not think about getting my hairs done second to last just in case there's a little bit. Now, good hair people will give you extra bobby pins that somebody can, tuck in there and stuff like that. It's not like they left you hanging.
Yeah.
It's just by the time you were done, what started to slip was they were already gone at that time.
Yeah.
And it was before the first look, so we needed to have everything in place for the first look. So I do get that, but that's good advice. All right, anything else?
I think that's all.
That's good advice. All right. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming back to the channel. This is Stefania. This is one of my brides from one of my weddings, and I wanted to come up with an idea to help future brides come up with answers to help them plan their day so it's not so overwhelming. So this series is going to call Dear Future Bride, What They Wish They Knew Before They Started. So hopefully that was helpful to you guys. Thank you to Stefania for coming to the channel and giving me some wisdom to bring to you. So I'll put all the information down below. Thank you guys for following the channel. Hit that like button and subscribe button. And remember to smile more, because it sure does hurt less. Peace. Thank you so much. That was excellent.